I always thought betrayal hit, like a lightning strike, loud, impossible to ignore. Mine didn't. Mine showed up quietly, tucked into a dinner reservation. Emma and I had been married for 10 years. From the outside, we looked perfect. A home that smelled like coffee every morning, shared Netflix accounts, framed photos from trips that already felt like they belonged to another life. Somewhere along the way, those photos stopped being reminders of happiness and became evidence of a story that no longer existed. I first noticed things changing on a Tuesday night. She'd been distant for months, answering questions with half-formed sentences, smiling at her phone more than at me. When I asked what was so funny, she'd shrug and say, "Just work stuff, James." I wanted to believe her. Every husband wants to. Then, one evening while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the counter. I caught a glimpse of the screen just before it went dark. One message. "Tomorrow night, same place. Can't wait to see you." No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I remember staring at it, feeling a cold crawl start in my chest and spread outward. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to know who he was, how long it had been going on, and above all, how she could look me in the eye every day and pretend nothing had changed. The next day, she left the house dressed better than she had in months. Perfume, heels, and that red dress she hadn't worn since our anniversary 3 years ago. When I asked where she was going, she smiled and said, "Dinner with some clients. Don't wait up." I nodded. I didn't tell her I already knew exactly which restaurant she'd picked. That afternoon, I called the place, the Elm and Vine, dim lights, overpriced wine, the kind of spot people think is romantic just because the menu says so. I made a reservation for 2, under her name, at the same time she usually booked. Then I asked for something special, a note to be delivered at the end of their meal. No questions, no explanations. Just a request. When evening came, I parked across the street and watched through the tall glass windows as she walked in. She greeted him. He looked about my age, maybe a little younger, confident in the way men do when they think they're winning someone else's wife. They sat in a corner booth, leaning in, laughing, the kind of closeness that used to belong to me. I could almost hear her laugh, the one that used to make me forget bad days. Now it sounded like someone else's soundtrack. At first, I felt numb. Then the anger came, slow and precise, like fire licking the edges of dry paper. But I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to shout or embarrass anyone. I wanted closure, the kind you get without an audience. So I waited. At 8:45, I texted the manager as planned. A few minutes later, a waiter approached their table with a folded envelope on a silver tray. Emma took it politely, opened it, and her smile vanished instantly. She read it twice, then looked around the room as if she'd seen a ghost. Her date said something, but she didn't answer. She just held the envelope, trembling. Inside were 10 simple words. "Enjoy your dinner. The bill's covered." Our marriage isn't. She didn't see me, and I didn't want her to. I started the car and drove away, leaving behind the restaurant lights and the version of myself that kept forgiving her silences. I didn't drive straight home. I pulled over by the pier we used to visit when life felt heavy. She'd rest her head on my shoulder and whisper, "We'll always find our way back, won't we?" That night, I realized she already had, just not to me. I watched the water for a long time. Waves swallowed whatever emotions tried to surface. Anger, sadness, disbelief. They blended into something quieter. Acceptance. The kind that shows up when you finally run out of excuses to stay. When I got home, her side of the bed was still neat. I sat on my side and wrote a short note, leaving it on her pillow. "Emma, you didn't just lose me tonight. You lost a version of me that kept forgiving you. The rest is yours to keep. The house, the memories, the silence." Then I packed a single suitcase, grabbed my keys, and left. She called the next morning. 10 times I didn't answer. On the 11th, I picked up. Her voice was shaky, almost childlike. "James, please, can we talk?" "Talk," I repeated calmly. "You've been talking to someone else for months. What's left to say?" "I made a mistake," she whispered. "It didn't mean anything." I almost laughed. "You dressed up, drove across town, and shared dinner with him. That sounds like it meant something. Silence says everything words can't." Her voice cracked. You were there. Yes, I said. Long enough to watch you enjoy the last meal I paid for. She started crying loud, messy sobs that would have broken me in the past. But not that day. I wasn't cruel, but I wasn't kind either. Goodbye, Emma, I said, and I ended the call. That was 2 months ago. Since then, I've learned that grief doesn't always come from loss. Sometimes it comes from realizing how much you tolerated in the name of love. I moved into a small apartment downtown. No shared closet, no framed photos, no second toothbrush. For the first time in years, silence felt peaceful instead of heavy. Friends asked if I'd ever take her back. I told them the truth. I already had too many times. A week after the divorce papers were signed, I went back to the Elm and Vine. Not to relive the past, but to reclaim it. I sat at the same corner table, ordered the same wine, and this time, I smiled for real. Halfway through, the same waiter approached. He recognized me immediately. Sir, he said, I remember that night. I bet you do, I replied. He nodded slowly. Most people make scenes. You just left a note. Never seen anything like it. I shrugged. Sometimes silence says more than shouting ever could. He smiled. Well, whatever you wrote, it worked. She came back the next day asking if you'd left another message. I didn't ask what she said. I didn't need to know. I tipped him generously and added, if another man ever books this table for a woman named Emma, make sure he knows what kind of history he's dining over. Walking out into the cool night air, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at him, not even at myself for missing the signs. I was free. Some endings come with fireworks. Others come with tears. Mine came with a bill, a note, and a quiet goodbye. And in that silence, I finally heard the one thing I've been waiting for all along, my own peace.